Welcome to my channel on the best of fantasy. Let's talk Dresden Files, specifically book 2 of Jim Butcher's beloved urban fantasy series. Now, Full Moon is the most Halloween appropriate book that I am reviewing this month by far, and it actually takes place in October as well, so appropriate on many levels. And there is plenty of gore and quite a few violent deaths, and some of them even surprising, I would say. It is definitely a bit more gruesome than Stormfront was. And I've also reviewed Stormfront, by the way. I'll put a link in the description to that video. But if you like werewolves of all varieties, here's your book. Oh, and there might be some minor spoilers for Stormfront in this video. Overall, in my opinion, Full Moon is a weaker book than Stormfront, which I really liked. And many fans of the series have told me that Full Moon is perhaps the weakest book in the entire Dresden Files. I have my issues with Full Moon that I'm going to detail in a bit, but it still contains many of the best things about Stormfront, like the humor and the quirkiness and the relentless action and the appeal, at least for me, of the protagonist and some of the supporting characters. So I'm going to touch on the negatives first, and I want to finish strong with the positives. And I'll say up front that I definitely intend to continue with this series, especially since many of my viewers have assured me that it gets better and better as it progresses, and I definitely have learned to trust my viewers because they have never steered me wrong. So, beginning with the negatives. Now, I touched on the whole male gaze issue that many readers have with the Dresden Files in my review of Stormfront. So, I'm not going to dwell on it here, except to note that it's actually a bit worse, I think, in Full Moon. Really, some of the tired, juvenile humor around naked female bodies just fell really flat for me, frankly. I still think Harry is a vastly sympathetic character, and I also don't think he's any kind of sexual predator or anything like that. So I'm going to explain a little bit more about Harry in a bit. And also, fans have assured me that as the books improve in the series, the male gaziness also decreases. Another issue that I personally had was that Full Moon's plot is a lot like one of those superhero movies with lots of explosions and too many characters. It's just a bit too busy and lacking in substance. The craziness was fun in Stormfront, and Butcher really, I think, controlled it well there, but the chaos gets out of hand at times in Full Moon, and some of the resolutions feel a bit contrived and even maybe cartoony to me. Maybe that's the vibe that Butcher was going for, or maybe there's just one too many species of werewolf introduced. And with so many werewolves squeezed into one place, Butcher, I think, sacrifices some depth, especially in regard to the characters. The various lupine villains in the story are little more than caricatures, frankly, though one villain has some, I think, interesting potential in his relationship with Harry, and that would be gangster Johnny Marcone. He is a recurring character with hints of future development. I'll be interested to see what Butcher does with him. Speaking of recurring characters, I think I like what Butcher does with Karen Murphy. She's a mostly likable foil to Harry. She's very practical and tough, but there are hints of some seriously disturbing issues with her, particularly in one scene where her behavior is downright abusive, especially for a police officer. But this is either, I think, either random mishandled scene, or Lieutenant Murphy is going to be going to some truly dark places in the future books. I actually really like what Butcher does with Harry and Susan, where he takes their relationship in Full Moon, and I think he actually handles the slow and sometimes awkward dance of their relationship really well, so I enjoyed that aspect of it. But make no mistake, this is mostly about Harry. We get more hints of Harry's traumatic past involving his former mentor and his former lover. And we also learn a bit about the mystery of Harry's parents and when these hints come, it's hard not to think of another orphaned magical Harry from the fantasy genre, though that one is a bit younger. But for both of them, their absent mothers seem to be keys to who they are. I'm not going to get all Freudian on you here, but the fact is that orphans and absent mothers are a staple of fantasy and myths, and Harry's slowly revealed past adds some nice layers to a character who has some serious pain and some internal struggles. He's a wounded loner who chivalrously clings to the idea of doing good and helping those in need, even when it hurts him, and even when power tempts him down the easier path. In this book as well, he goes through a great deal of pain, both physical and emotional. And I think it's his vulnerability that makes him so relatable, at least for me. And he's a kick-ass nerd who really speaks to our inner nerd. I really like and sympathize with this character, and I'm actually very eager to see where Butcher takes him. So, even though I complained about the chaos of the plot, Full Moon features the same breathless pace that Stormfront has, and it's very easy to get lost in the story as the pages flip by. The action is relentless, and when Butcher steers it well, he's really at his best. It's an easy and entertaining read, and there is potential, I think, for some thematic depth in the series as it continues to peel back the layers of Harry's past. There are a few sprinkles of hints about the Never Never, which I hope to eventually visit, and Butcher really handles his Chicago setting very well, maintaining some of the crime fiction vibe, even as the fantasy elements seem to be growing in the series. Overall, it's just a really fun read, and I'm really looking forward to finding out just how great this series becomes. I appreciate you watching this video, and if you like fantasy content, please consider liking and subscribing. My next review is going to be on Stephen King's The Dark Tower series, Book 2 specifically, which is also fairly Halloween appropriate, I suppose. So I hope you will join me for that. Until next time.